Breaking news. Thousands of Palestinian workers are being deported by Israel back to the conflict zone in Gaza. Israel on Friday deported thousands of Palestinian workers from the Gaza Strip back to the besieged territory, Palestinian authorities said, capping what many described as harrowing weeks trapped in legal limbo since their detention when the Israel-Hamas war erupted. Some workers, who were seen walking through a crossing that Israel had closed after Hamas's deadly attack on southern Israel on October 7, claimed that Israeli authorities had mistreated them violently while they were detained. A request for comment on the allegations from the Israeli military went unanswered at first. One of the workers, Wael al-Sajda, said from the border, "We sacrificed and they treated us like livestock over there," referring to the identification bracelet around his ankle. About 18,000 Palestinians from Gaza were granted permission to work in Israel, and al-Sajda was one of them. In Gaza, where the unemployment rate is close to 50%, the permits have been highly sought after. Even though Israel has been issuing a wider blockade to weaken the Islamic militant group Hamas, in recent years it has also begun issuing these permits as a measure it believes has helped stabilize Gaza and moderate Hamas. Israel announced late Thursday that it would be revoking the workers' permits and deporting them. Since the attack on October 7 in which Hamas militants stormed across the border, killing some 1,400 people and kidnapping another 240, Israel has said relatively little about the workers. Workers who were let go on Friday have reported hearing rumors of a mass roundup and being taken to Israeli prisons. Some came back with injuries consistent with their accounts of abuse at the hands of Israeli security forces. Others returned psychologically scarred. Mansour Warsh Aga, 61, was the oldest and he was the only one who didn't come back alive. "Just tell us what happened, please." Warsh Aga, a 24-year-old Palestinian, worked as a date farmer in Israel. His nephew, Basim Abu Samara, expressed doubt that the family would ever receive the dates because Mansour had been killed. On Friday, his body was brought to his family at Kerem Shalom. Mansour had not communicated with the Warsh Aga family since October 7. They later found out that he had been detained at the Kalandia checkpoint outside of Jerusalem along with other workers who had attempted to cross into the West Bank before the military closed the crossings. The detainees were taken to the West Bank military prisons of Anatot and Ofer. Employees claimed they were blindfolded, interrogated, beaten, and starved for long periods of time at this facility. According to al-Sajda, the Palestinian worker who returned to Gaza on Friday, "For 3 days we remained handcuffed and blindfolded. For 2, 3, or even 4 hours, we would be forced to stand in the hot sun without shade or refreshments." Workers in the northern city of Beit Lahia informed Warsh Aga's relatives that the ailing 61-year-old farmer was released in poor condition and later died. His body bore signs of severe beating, said his nephew, but hospitals in Gaza were too overwhelmed with the war wounded to perform an autopsy or issue a medical report, his family said. While their families in Gaza were being subjected to Israel's devastating bombardment, Israeli rights groups claim that Israel detained the workers without charge, due process, or legal representation. According to the health ministry in Hamas-controlled territory, over 9,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict. They had valid permits to be in Israel and work there, said Miriam Marmer, public advocacy director at Gisha, an Israeli rights group that advocates for Palestinian freedom of movement. They were demoted overnight. They faced danger from the military, the police, and any Israeli citizen who happened to catch sight of them. The full extent of Israel's roundup is still unknown. On Friday, the spokesperson for Gaza's border crossings, Wael Abu Omar, said that as many as 10,000 deported Palestinians had returned. At the Kerem Shalom crossing in southern Gaza, relieved families smothered them with kisses. When asked for a precise number, the Israeli Prime Minister's office and the Defense Ministry both refused. It was unclear how many workers were in Israel at the time of the attack due to the constant influx and outflow of workers. Some of the returnees have hypothesized that others are still being held by Israeli authorities or are in hiding. The Israeli Ministry of Justice did not provide a statement when contacted. The Israeli Defense Ministry office responsible for civilian matters, including work permits, Kogat, declined to comment. The Associated Press, however, was told by Israeli officials that thousands of workers were present in Israel during the Hamas attack and that some of them had been detained. The officials said there were no signs that the workers were aiding Hamas in its onslaught, but they were discussing a classified security issue on the condition of anonymity. According to the rights groups, Israel kept the conditions and whereabouts of the workers largely under wraps. Executive Director of Hamacht, an Israeli organization that provides legal aid for Palestinians, Jessica Montel, described the current situation as unprecedented, citing the scale of the arrests and the lack of transparency. What facility is housing these individuals? On what basis in law? We're fighting in court for the right to have these elementary questions answered. Israeli soldiers reportedly took the money and phones of the Palestinian workers they rounded up. On Friday, they claimed that their belongings were still missing.